Number 1, 3 people share 5 bagels equally. How much bagel does each person get? Number 2, 5 people share 3 bagels equally. How much bagel does each person get? Let's figure out problem number 1 by working with some actual bagels. So here we have 5 bagels to be shared equally by 3 people. The 3 plates represent the 3 people. I see that I can get started by giving each person 1 whole bagel. 1 for you, 1 for you, and 1 for you. But then I have 2 bagels left that I want to split up among these 3 plates. One solution would be to take each of the remaining bagels separately and cut it into 3 equal pieces. So I'm going to cut this bagel into thirds. And I'll give each person a third, 1/3 of that bagel. Then the last remaining bagel, I can also cut into thirds. I'm going to cut it into 3 equal pieces. So a third here, a third here, and a third here. So there, I've separated up the bagels into 3 equal parts. Now we can see that each person gets 1 whole bagel and 2/3 of another. That's 1 2/3 bagels for each person. Let's go back to the whiteboard now. Now that we know the answer to the first problem, let's go ahead and work through the math and see if we get the same thing. In number 1, we're taking a quantity and we're separating it into parts. When we have a quantity that we're separating into parts, we take the quantity and we divide by the number of parts. The quantity that we're dividing up here consists of the bagels. The number of parts is the same as the number of people. It's also the same as the number of plates when we cut up the actual bagels. Now in number 1, we have 5 bagels divided by 3 people. The division problem, 5 divided by 3, can be written as a fraction. We write the first number, the 5, on top in the numerator, over the second number, 3, that goes in the denominator. So we get 5/3 bagels for each person. Now, 5/3 is a fraction that represents more than 1 whole because there's a larger number on top. Let's convert that to a mixed numeral. We can convert that by taking 5 and dividing by 3. 3 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract, we get 2. And that's our remainder in the division. The 2 here represents the 2 whole bagels that we had to cut up. If I write my remainder in fractional form, I write that 2 over the number in front, 3. So each person got 1 2/3 bagels. 1 2/3 bagels for each person. And there's our answer to the first part of this problem. Now let's try to solve number 2, the second problem, by cutting up some bagels. Here we have 3 bagels to be shared equally by 5 people. The 5 plates represent the 5 people. Now, I certainly cannot give an entire bagel to one person. I don't have enough to go around. Each person is going to get less than 1 bagel. One possible solution would be to take each one of these bagels and cut it into 5 equal parts. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to slice here, and let's see, here's a piece, another. So what I did was I cut this bagel into fifths. A fifth for you, fifth for you, fifth, another fifth, and finally the fifth. Now let's take a second bagel and do the same. So now we'll separate our second bagel into fifths. Fifth here, one here, 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 and here. And finally, we have one more bagel to cut up. Let's cut that into 5 equal pieces. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So my third bagel now, I've cut into 5 pieces, and I can give 1 here, 1 here, another, another, and another. And I managed to divide up those 3 bagels equally among 5 people. Notice that because each piece of a bagel is 1/5 of a bagel, each person gets 3/5. Let's go back to the whiteboard now. The second problem is another situation where we're taking a quantity and we're separating it into equal parts. So to do the math for number 2, we would want to take our quantity and once again divide by the number of parts. The quantity is still the bagels. And the number of parts is the number of people. And that's the same as the number of plates that were involved. In number 2, we were working with just 3 bagels divided by the number of parts is 5, that's the number of people. So 3 bagels divided by 5 can be written as a fraction, similar to what we did in number 1, but here the 3 goes on top in the fraction because the 3 represents the quantity, the first number in the division. We write 3 over 5, the second number in the division when it's written in this way. So each person gets 3/5 of a bagel. 3/5 bagel for each person. Notice that in number 2, each person got less than 1 whole bagel. But in the first problem, each person got more than 1 whole bagel.